And I want to invite my esteemed panelists. The Director General said that we need optimists, and we have three optimists here who will be discussing and sharing with us the solutions that they have come up with and that they have worked on. So first of all, I want to invite a former DW colleague, the CEO and the founder of the Bonn Institute, which deals with constructive journalism and human-centered journalism, Anant Heinrichs. Welcome to the Global Media Forum. Please take a seat there. And then we have the executive director of the Indian Express Group, of course, from India. They are, among others, the publisher of the Indian Express, which is one of the leading newspapers in India. Anant, Goenka, welcome to the Global Media Forum. And this man is proof that science does not have to be boring or dry. Millions of people were tuning in when he was delivering live videos, live streams during the COVID pandemic. In Brazil, especially because that's where he is based, he has become the voice of reason and where people go to for reliable science information. Atila Iamarino, great to have you with us. Please take a seat. All right, so I said that you guys are all optimists and you are here because you want to hear best practices from around the world. So as we start, I would like for each one of you to tell us, this is the problem that I came across and this is a solution that I presented or worked on. Ellen, I want to start with you.
Well, great first question. I have a background not only in journalism, but also in journalism innovation. And I have been preoccupied with digitizing DW's programs for quite some time, I think 15 years or so. And during that time, at some point, I really started to wonder, is focusing on technology really all we need to do in journalism to digitize journalism successfully, to engage our audiences even in digitized time, where it's not a lack of information, but an overflow. People are getting information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And since 2017, when the digital news report by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism was published for the very first time, we can see that people are being overwhelmed by the sheer amount of the news, but also by the negativity of it, because traditionally in journalism we say when it leads, right? So negative framing is successful journalism used to be. Now we see that our audiences don't think like that anymore. They're turning their backs to our journalism. So we really need to refocus, I thought. And what can we do? I don't think that AI or any sort of technology is going to, help us win our audiences back, win trust back that we've lost throughout the way. We really need to transform journalism on the content level. We really need to focus much more on a diversity of perspectives, on solutions as well as on digging up the problems, and on fostering constructive dialogue with our audiences in order to engage them in a more democratic and diverse dialogue on
and that is why
very
we decided
issues
to
of our time.
establish this Bonn Institute.
Right.
We didn't want to just give workshops, it had to be a whole institute.
I know. Yeah. Get me started talking about it, you know what happens.
All right, now I want to move to Anant, because I want to hear from you. You just took over as executive director. This is a company that has been in your family this is the third generation right now. What problems were you facing and what solution did you work with?
I didn't just take over, it's been 12 years. So
okay, so all right.
But every year seems like a completely new start. Just some context. So firstly, thank you for the theme, because I think most media conferences we come and lament about the mortality of journalism. Here we're talking, it forced me to think about what we did right, which was fun. We have not done that in a long time. Some context. In India there are 148,000 registered publications, 4,500 newspapers, 500 news channels, hundreds of thousands of websites. I can't even start counting how many YouTube news outfits there would be. And in all this, what we found as a problem was that it was the most educated people who would, I think, have doubts on the merits of free speech and free press. There are people who thought, what's the point of it? You know, it was the most educated people, it was the most exposed people who were saying, why can't we be more like Israel, Singapore, China? They would look at these countries and compare Indian decision-making and Indian politics. And there was these people who were kind of complaining about free press and then moving to Dubai, right? So I think the whole idea that we thought, how do we remind people the importance of a vibrant free press and democracy, really? And I think what we started to do was really, it sounds a little bit crass, but I think it really worked. We began to really remind people the impact good independent journalism has had in a very simple, layman kind of a way. So we've done a lot of we're known for our investigative reporting. There are very few newspapers in all of this, very few news outfits that actually invest in independent, investigative, hard journalism. It's had impact. Obviously, we've recovered more than 100 antiques that were smuggled out of India in all the museums around America and UK. We've discovered that there were
So
over.
you're saying investigative journalism was one part where you decided to focus on to bring audiences back and to
We were
let
always
them
doing
see
investigative
the value
journalism, but I'm saying
of
just
independent journalism.
just painting the impact that that's
Yes,
had
yeah.
and why that matters to the common reader, why that matters to India. I think that was one big thing we
Yeah,
did.
I want to bring Atila into the conversation. What about you? What was the solution to the problem that you saw?
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm a scientist. My background is in science. I'm a virologist. So I was used to doing my research, communicating also to people during the 2009 pandemic of swine flu, the Ebola cases we had in 2013. I was analyzing the data and at the same time communicating to the broad public on social media what we found. So when the pandemic starts, I was intending to be the person doing the science communication for the media, science communication for journalists, and interpretation of the news for lay people. So why do we have a virus spreading like this? Why don't we have vaccines? Why don't we have a medicine to treat it? But then Brazil changed during the pandemic. The government fired 4 health ministers in a row. The government started to promote bogus treatments as official treatments and attack the vaccines. They even took the COVID cases panel down. So both the press and the scientists had to get together to actually do the government role of explaining to people what was happening and preparing them to be at home at first and then to take vaccines later against what the government officially was saying. So in the end, I was the bridge between newspapers, scientists, and the public to communicate to each other what was happening. And the better solutions we had was to establish good relations of journalists, scientists, and in social media, with social media, the verification of both journalists and scientists' profiles, the establishment of parallel panels that were officially keeping numbers, unofficially keeping the numbers that should be official, and then doing for each social media, I was doing the kind of content that was better poised to be there. So
we will get to that point later because that is a question that I will want to ask you later about. So how do you decide which content goes where and how you package the information that you want to send out? And I want to get back to you about constructive journalism. It has already been mentioned a couple of times, but just give us a working definition so that we are all on the same page. What is it exactly?
So for me, constructive journalism is really good, future-oriented, human-centric journalism, which means it includes problems as well as solutions. It fosters constructive dialogues over the very important topics of our times that need to be discussed in the open public. And it also focuses on a variety of perspectives, includes as many voices and perspectives as possible.
Is that something then that you do for every story? Because I can't imagine if I'm just doing a news report to collect as many perspectives as I can. There's a time factor, there's so many issues that need to be considered. I want to get the story out quickly, and I cannot call up people and say, what do you think about this issue?
Of course, there are limitations to constructive approaches in journalism. There's never a silver bullet that will save journalism. But at the same time, breaking news situations where you really have to focus on the terrible news event are one thing. Other than that, most journalism is not breaking news. And it's up to your newsroom to decide how much time do you take, how much value do you pose on researching not just the problem, but also potential solutions that might prove very, very helpful for your audiences. So constructive journalism is not a format. It's a mindset. And it's a holistic concept for your entire newsroom, because it also has to include, those who are making decisions on distributing resources. How much time do you spend? What are you paying for, like a really good investigation, plus a look at the potential solutions? So in my view, it's the only way to go forward in journalism, because it proves so much more helpful for our audiences these days, who are desperate to really look for help, guidance, context in very challenging and conflicting times.
Mm-hmm. And constructive journalism, how much is that part of the DNA of the Indian Express Group?
No, I must say, we don't do a lot of that kind of journalism. We do a lot of human interest stories, of course, when bring stories out to light. But the idea of how you can help, that going one step further, I think there's a lot more that we can do, and I just think the regulatory stuff just kind of really holds us back. But we should be able to crack it. I do think that one of the things that we decided to do was to focus on explanatory journalism, which I know is not something unique to Indian Express, but it happens all over the world. But it's really helped, because that is where we kind of, figure out how we don't, in an environment where 800 million people are under the age of 40, that's our audience, right? It's very tempting, and a lot of my peers have taken the route of dumbing down. So we said we don't want to dumb down. We want to be the tool that makes audiences smarten up. And a way of doing that, I thought, was explanatory, which has really helped us. And that's, in a sense, not quite as constructive. It's, I think, one step short of that, but it definitely adds value.
All right, so Atila, explanatory journalism, that is exactly what you do. So tell us about what you see other people maybe doing wrong, because you, I'm sure, are not the only one who had knowledge about the COVID virus, for example, but you were the person that millions of people really followed. And give us hints and tips on how we can do science stories and pieces and reports better.
Yeah. Far from me to be able to actually explain to you this, but from a scientist perspective and from someone that is trying to always have the empathy of looking for what the audience is seeking for, we have to actually engage clicks online. So I think it's usually how science explains it and what's behind today's news using science. So for pandemics, for example, traditionally you see this country has X many cases, we have this new case of this disease in this place, and this informs some people around it, but not in the long term. So usually what I bring is, this virus spreads by mosquitoes. So mosquitoes coming from here to here, global warming is making them more frequent in this region. So we expect to have cases today, but tomorrow, next year, next summer. So having this scientific context to what's happening is usually informative in the long term. So we can have fact-checking from the audience. So in April, you said cases would go up. They are not going up. They're not going up. Why? Or they are really going up. Why? So we give this information also of what was happening. And when we have floods, when we have weather events, explaining how global warming is make the climate more extreme in some situations, someplace drier, someplace wet, sometimes both. So giving this context of how we understand it and how we came to understand it may be really informative in the long term.
All right. I want to involve our audience now, because we want you to be part of the conversation as well. So I would like for all of you to take out your phones, and then we will show you a QR code on the screens. There it is. Kindly scan it, and you will be directed to this question, which says, which tool or hack recently solved an editorial challenge for you? Which tool or hack recently solved an editorial challenge for you? You can start replying now, write in your name as well, and then later I will read out some of the information that you have shared. If you believe that it is a tool that is not very well known, please also tell us what it does. That will be very helpful for us. All right, Ellen, so you visit newsrooms, you tell people how they can do more constructive pieces. What has the feedback been so far, and are you really seeing a change in the landscape here in Germany, for example, in the media landscape?
That's actually something we're very much interested in, and not just preaching, but also, finding out whether this works. Because we are not promoting constructive journalism as a new belief system in journalism or anything like that. It's more about how can we re-engage with our audiences, how can journalism be a successful source of information. And what we actually see is when newsrooms started to include, for instance, solutions into their reporting of well-known problems, people, and that's something you can see in digital analytics, right? People start to stay longer. So they actually read these sorts of pieces for a longer period of time. They engage much more. Their session time might also expand. And that's something that's crucial because we have a lot of problems in journalism right now. And one is definitely about monetizing our content, right? So we're all looking for a way on how to monetize journalism these days. And if we can keep our audiences happy, if we can keep subscribers reading our content for a longer period of time, that's great news. So solutions journalism is not just, helpful for our audiences because it offers help in difficult times. It's also worthwhile spending time on for publishers because it keeps their subscribers happy or might even attract new ones. So I think this is definitely a win-win situation, which we would really like to delve deeper into in the forthcoming time.
All right, so let's get really practical. Let's take one problem that is facing lots of German companies and lots of German employers, a lack of skilled workers here in Germany. Okay, so you say that if you write about it and say, we don't only have this problem, but here's a solution, then readers will stay longer. Does that solution have to come? Because if you ask opposition politicians, they'll have an answer. Do I get the solution from these people, or where do I get the solution from? Like, how do I complete this article then?
You're right, it's a new practice. So research practices are new when you're digging for solutions. And during our workshops, we really teach to what kind of sources are helpful when you're actually looking for solutions. Sometimes it's just one different sort of question. If you ask an expert not who is to blame, what's wrong and why is nothing happening, and instead start to ask, okay, who's doing it better? Then, these sorts of experts usually know, and they're like, you should look at this in that city. They have started to attract, foreign labor force very successfully and have integrated these people very well. And yet then you start, looking for these positive outliers and tell the story rather than about the problem, about these positive outliers where people can really learn from.
All right. If we talk about solutions, we also need to talk about the credibility of news outlets because we are losing credibility. We have so much competition, and we're seeing that sometimes the newspapers or the news outlets that used to seem very trustworthy, as you said, people do not understand why we need free press. So India just went through an election. Tell me about how you went about the coverage when you have so much competition to say that we are a reliable source of information. Please read what we are saying.
Actually, a very simple answer. We just gave a lot of space to both sides, which is a surprisingly unique thing to do. And I think that's again one of the things that is very important. There was the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. We had an event with him, and the kind of messages and mail that I got, I was shocked. Why is he a guest at your event? And I said, look at that.
So people were questioning why you had interviewed him.
Yes, and I was like, listen, this guy, and to put it in a European context, at that time, he was Merkel, Boris Johnson, and Macron all combined in popular vote, right? He was possibly the most popular political leader in the world at that time, which he just won his election in Uttar Pradesh. You have to give him the space. You have to ask him tough questions, but you have to invite him, you have to give him the space. And I think too much of what's happening in journalism is, this is the only truth that we will put space on. And I think, Peter spoke very well about that, and I think even in the video before, the introduction video, that really helped us. It made people upset also. It made people say this is not, it made people feel a sense of disillusionment or a sense of, they were unhappy with the fact that the amount of space we gave and deferring opinion. But I think that that was an important process to go through because it really helped us in the election. We got enormous audience, and it helped us with credibility. Because now when we sort of speak against any side, it's taken more seriously because we give all sides a space.
Okay, I will get back to you to ask you about the fight against fake news and disinformation, but that is a question I first want to put to Atila, because you, as somebody who was very much in the spotlight, especially during pandemic, you had to experience how anti-vaxxers, people who were against, I don't know, vaccines and other issues, or who did not believe that COVID was a real thing, were not only doubting the message and attacking the message, but then also attacking you personally as the messenger. Tell me how you dealt with that, because I'm sure that we have lots of people in the audience who maybe are also content creators, and they are getting these attacks as well online.
Yes, I was really in the spotlight, like some 5 or 10 times as the first trending topic in Twitter Brazil because of attacks.
Your
because
name
of
was
some-
trending
yes,
on Twitter.
yes. Or having memes being done like the making me smile in a print from a video about how many deaths we had that week. So putting me like someone that was enjoying what was happening. So it's my first example was Greta Thunberg in 2019 when I was lecturing at university how fake news work. When you can't doubt the facts, you attack who is communicating them. So I knew when I began that I would be attacked in this way. So I had to have a past that could be checked. So for my luck, I had more than 10 years doing science communication, health communication, and talking about viruses, so people couldn't paint me as someone that was trying to get to the spotlight with it, because it was years doing it. And I had to be very clear about my sources, my facts, the science I was communicating. So anyone that wanted to refuse me, they didn't have to refute me. They had to refute the papers that I was citing. So I wouldn't engage in this kind of discussion online. So, okay, you're saying me that vaccines don't work, that we have to drink chloroquine, that is the medicine that the government is promoting. Fine, publish the paper, have it checked, and then we'll discuss it. Until then, I'm only communicating about what's being published. And I had to understand that it wasn't personal. So I would go online, publish whatever was found that week, do my live, like 1 hour lecture about the latest findings, and close it and not look over, because there would be like endless attacks coming later, phone calls for me or my family threatening us. And I had to understand that that was the moment, that was a way to silence me and others. Last week, I went through the attacks on Twitter to actually bring some examples here, and most of the accounts had changed to either porn or elections or football or something else. So it was very clearly bots that were sold to promote something else later. So it's very clear that you have 1 or 2 people that are actually doing the critiques, but it's mostly an online event. So if you're communicating something that is controversial, especially in science, especially climate change, for example, understand that there is a combined movement, artificial movement, to discredit it, and don't take it personally, because later on, it's another thing that they are attacking, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a valid point. You say don't take it personally, but I believe that it can also mess with your mental health, because at the end of the day, if people are also calling you and your family, that sounds really, really, really tough and really brutal. And yes.
Yeah, for my luck, I had this close contact with the press, so anything that happened to me would be news, so for better or for worse. So when they changed my government data to have me like a dead person, so in the official documents, I was dead. It was changed a little bit later.
Your official government
Data.
information was
Yes,
changed,
my official
was
health
hacked.
information, I
Yeah.
was changed as a dead person. And some other, like they changed my name, my parents' name to like anti-Semitic attacks, and I'm not Jew, but this is the kind of movement we had. So when this happened, it was news, and it was changed 1 or 2 days later. So being in contact also with the media and being in the press really helped to protect me. We had other scientists that had way worse interactions, like having batteries thrown in their water source in their house. So I was by far one of the least attacked.
Anant, how do you deal with fake news? How do you deal with disinformation?
It's actually been an incredible opportunity for us. I think that, especially post-COVID, and I think that word COVID gives everybody PTSD. But it really, I think audiences began to look for credible sources of news. So most of us actually, again in this very crowded media environment, the top 10, 20 news organizations, all of us had a decent growth in our direct traffic. Which is very welcome in India, right? Because most of the traffic in India is sideways from aggregators. And I think that that's because actually the consumer of news became much more discerning with COVID. And I think we've been trying our best to keep that going. So, people are very sort of aware now about where they've consumed the news from, which wasn't the case even 3 or 4 years ago. So it's a huge opportunity for us.
All right, so people turn to you as a credible news source, but then again, you and the journalists that work for you also use online, they use social networks to get information. Like they'll see, okay, there's a post from this politician. Do you have a great fact-checking team, or how do you go about finding information that is really credible? And
yeah, I mean, look, this fact-checking team and this concept is a very consumer-facing concept. It's a very good idea and a good concept. But I mean, we at Express really feel like that is our job. Like, we have been fact-checking since we started, right? So I don't think it's a new thing. Like, you have a fact-checking unit and whatever.
No, I'm just saying
whatever comes out for that journalist in his or her beat,
yeah.
that is his or her job to fact-check.
Yeah.
Whatever the politician says or whatever doesn't, and I mean, that's just part of that's our daily job, is to fact check. I don't think it's specialized.
Is it getting more difficult now? Because if we look at the use of AI, it is very easy to produce an image or a video that looks real, and it would take lots of skills to really find out whether this was fake or not.
Of course, and I think the decision we make then, because I think credibility, if we think of credibility as our main asset and our only real asset, is compromise on the speed, but get it right. Which I know that as a digital and as a print, we can say that as a DNA, we can say, let's compromise on speed and get it right. I know it's much tougher for TV to say compromise on speed, but that's at least the call we have taken.
Yes. Ellen, how can we as journalists use digitalization, how can we use AI for our advantage, for it to be a solution to our readers and to our viewers?
Well, at the Bonn Institute, we're working a lot about the question, how can we actually use a generative AI to ask more constructive questions, to discover new perspectives on topics we're researching. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the use of AI, and at the same time, the digital news report was published today again, and it tells us that our audiences are very reluctant when it comes to, the use of journalists with AI. So people do really want human beings to remain in the driver's seats in journalism, and that's also something we need to respect. And I also think we have to move forward very carefully in order to not lose trust just for the sake of becoming more efficient or faster or producing even more content. The digital news report is not telling us that we're moving too slow or that we're not producing enough content. That's not our problem.
All right. Atila, I think you also wanted to say something about artificial intelligence before we go to the audience.
Well, I think we have to separate what is the press that whoever is promoting AI gives us and what their actual use is. We usually have this AI can hallucinate and produce fake data. It's not an hallucination, it's how it works actually. Whoever says that's an hallucination are us judging, knowing factually what's wrong there. So you have to understand it's a generating tool that will generate fake and good data as the same thing. And so we have to reflect on what is being promoted and the actual use that it will have. I'm guessing in 5 or 6 years, we'll have very few situational cases where it's used, and for most else, we're trying right now, it won't work in the long run. So having this long run vision that we're going to use it slowly, but in a good way, it's better than running to use it as we can and later on finding out how fake it is.
Okay, so my takeaway here is from all of you, I've heard that we need to slow down. We need to slow down, be more careful, and not have this urge to just deliver so much content. There's already enough content out there. All right, I want to turn to what our audience has said about the question, which tool or hack recently solved an editorial challenge for you? So we have AI and machine learning tools. I don't know if you can see the chart as well. Hold on, from where can I read it the best? We have, let me just start there. Okay, we have Perplexity AI, we have ChatGPT, we have AI in general, we have Copilot that can be used with Microsoft, we have Short AI, which will be helpful, but we can use it giving good info. That's exactly what Atila said. Then we have AI instruments, okay, so it's lots of AI as I can tell. Then can we just scroll up again so I can see what else people have said? Okay, language and translation tools. For example, we have DeepL and we have Google Gemini transcription. Then people also use hacks and tools for research and for fact-checking. So we have Maltego, that one I do not know, fact-checking in general. As Anant said, it's not a new thing. Then there are different guides, fact-checking sites again, and then reverse image search, also very important, of course, in the case of AI. So I'm not going to read everything that we have here because I want to give room now to your questions or to your comments. We want to hear from you. What are your solutions that you want to share with us? Do you have any questions for my panelists? Now is your time. You're very welcome. Just raise your hand and then a mic will find you where you are. Welcome, dear audience. Yes, I have a gentleman there at the back. Welcome, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tidjane from Senegal. I just wanted to...
Can you kindly stand up so that
sorry.
we can see?
Yeah, my name is Tidjane C. I'm from Senegal. One question about the constructive journalism. When I hear her saying it's about human-centered journalism, I think journalism has always been about human beings, always. So I just wanted to hear her about that, maybe to clarify or elaborate a bit. And then disagree with the gentleman saying that fact-checking is not new. Yes, checking the facts is not new, but fact-checking as it appears now, as a genre, is really new. And it happened because journalists failed to check their facts. And this is why you have all over the world fact-checking desks, fact-checking units, or organizations specializing in fact-checking. I'm sure if I go through your newspaper, I'm sure if I go like, let's take a period of a week or a month maximum, I'm sure I can go and detect facts that have not been checked and that have been published. Almost sure.
Thank you very much.
Unless you are doing exclusively fact-checking, then you are in the genre we're talking about.
Thank you very much. I'll let Alan tell us again about human-centered journalism. He says that has always been the case. Tell me about
Thank you so much for your comment, and I personally absolutely agree, because that's what actually got me into journalism, curiosity, and being eager to talk and listen to people. At the same time, let me also present you with the facts. People are complaining that journalism these days is very withdrawn for the real interests of many people, lacking a lot of their perspectives and focusing too much on what politicians have to say on the big stories of our times. So constructive journalism, in a way, yes, is good old journalism. Sometimes we need a new label to present something that we should refocus on. Thank you for your question.
All right, thank you very much, Ellen. And Anant, quickly, please. Yeah, if you want to say anything.
I think she
to the
answered
challenge.
very well, and we can agree to disagree on what we have been doing in the past, but yeah.
All right, thanks. Any more questions, any more comments? Yes, Nira, welcome. Yeah, just hold on a second, we'll get you a microphone.
Please, in my hand. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nira Ismail, and I am a refugee journalist from Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. I do not have a question, but I do have a comment, and I want to share how we have created a solution for the lack of communication in Kakuma. So Kakuma, as we all know, is quite diverse. It has people from different nationalities, different religious background, and cultural practices. But all of these people need one thing, and that is crucial, direct communication, because they are involved with getting aid from NGOs, and they also have to collaborate and live together with a new host community away from their countries. So how do we give these communities the crucial and vital information that they need? And that is through Sikika Radio. So Sikika Radio is a radio program that has community reporters from different nationalities, different cultural backgrounds, and they come together as reporters and provide information to all the refugees and the host communities, as well as acting as a link between the communities and the humanitarian organizations that are in Kakuma. So I agree with her when she said that constructive journalism works, because that is what we do. Kakuma is sensitive, and instead of giving information or just talking about the conflicts, we try to find people who have gotten beyond the adversities that they have faced and provided solutions. Say, for example, if there is lack of water, maybe someone came up with an idea and they've built or they dug a borehole just near a river and they have access to water frequently. So if that person has done that, then we tell that story to the community to change their mindset into not only thinking of their adversities, but also find solutions on their own. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nira. Thank you for sharing with us that perspective. And of course, people can find out more about that program. Find Nira and chat with her during the break. All right, we're running out of time, so that will be the last question. But Anant, you wanted to say something about
I just
AI.
wanted to say, it didn't come up, I wanted to share in this. For the first time in a long time, all of Indian media has kind of pretty much gotten together and said that, we won't let ChatGPT or some of the AI tools crawl our content. And I just wanted to say that I think that's a good solution that we started with. I know it's a fairly controversial thing, but I wanted to just kind of share that out in this room because it's an important
thank you very
thing that
much.
we did.
And then very, very briefly, Atila, because I had said that I'll ask you towards the end, lots of people and even news organizations are struggling with the issue of I have this content, where do I publish it? Because you are everywhere. You're basically everywhere. You're on YouTube, you're on X, so how do you decide what to do, very briefly if you can?
Thank you. We had the Digital News Report covering Brazil since 2013. We have internal surveys of how people consume science and where they find it. So my premise was, where do people actually are? Where are people actually reading about science or news? So in Brazil, it was mostly WhatsApp, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. This was before TikTok. So I had to be on those platforms to actually do it. Who's on Instagram? In Brazil, it's mostly women and mostly seeking health in the science domain. So that's where we would have like short content, short videos for easy consumption on how to use masks, how to do this or that. And I would provide links for people to download the videos so that they could share it on WhatsApp, like a short 1-minute video, less than 10 megabytes, so they could share it. On Twitter, we had scientists and the press. So I would talk to both there, communicate the latest science findings, and the scientists present them to the press, or give interviews based on what I was tweeting at the time. And on YouTube, we have a large audience. Lots of Brazilians had time to watch it, and it's one of the few social media that has a TV app. So during the pandemic, everyone was at home, so people would sit in their families and watch it, my lives on YouTube. So I could do 1-2 hour long lectures every week there, because I had this huge attention from people there. So each social media had a different strategy, and they were based on my affinities also. I'm used to giving lectures. So that's why
you did your research first. Thank you very much, Atila. Atila Iamarino, thank you for being here on the panel. Anant, Goenka, and Heinrichs. That was our discussion. Best practices from around the world. We're here to share solutions. Thank you very much. I'm going to let you go back to your seats. Thank you.